All right. Well, happy Halloween. My name is Allison Clark, and welcome to another episode of Cowbells and Conversations. And I'm so excited to have my friend, who is currently dressed like a cow today, I love it, really talk about how we can be more resilient. I met Elisa through the National Speakers Association, and I'll never forget when I walked in and I met you. You had such a positive vibe. You were smiling. And then I heard your story, and you joked that you do things half-assed. So I apologize for saying that on this video, but I want you to tell us first who you are and tell us a bit about your story. What happened to you?
Sure. In a nutshell, I'm Elisa Hayes, as you said. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I owned a company, an entertainment company. We played dress up for a living. Basically, I did a one-woman show, and I had multiple teams of people, went out all over the place. Our entire purpose was working with over 30,000 kids a year and their families, building kids' confidence in front of an audience and belief in the power of their imagination.
Wow.
Cool job. Cool job to play dress up for a living. I was in 2014, so not that long ago, a little over 5.5 years ago. I was on the way to Houston, Texas with two of my employees to do our show at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And on March 1st at about 8 p.m. Central Time, our truck and trailer, large pickup truck and trailer slid on a 2-lane highway, got stuck jackknifed in an ice storm. My first priority was evacuating my two employees to safety. And this is why I talk about leadership and discovering that day what leadership really looks like. And then ultimately we were hit by a semi, then an SUV, and then a semi that was going 65 miles an hour on cruise control. He never touched the brakes, hit my body on the run outside of the vehicle. I was catapulted about 90 feet through the air and impaled on a cable guardrail in the center median of the highway. Really gruesome, but it's Halloween, so kind of appropriate, right? You know, so I lived my own personal horror story. I arrived, when I finally arrived, we don't have a lot of time, so super short story. Arrived with eyes fixed and dilated, no pulse, not breathing, blood pouring out of my wide open left side. And the really fascinating part medically is that I didn't get a spinal cord injury, but my pelvis was folded in half in what's called a book fracture, open book fracture. And people, when you look up the level of fractures that I had, it just says people bleed to death, they die. They don't survive. I also had a traumatic brain injury, injuries head to toe, full kidney failure. And 3 weeks into my 7-week-long ICU stay, I developed sepsis, got raced into one of the many, many major surgeries, and they amputated all of the gluteal muscles on the left side. Gluteus maximus, minimus, medius, all gone, which means I tell half-assed jokes.
Right? I love your attitude.
And so in my book that just came out, which is specifically directed towards women, I talk about being a badass, and I don't mean that in a obviously in a crass way. I am literally a badass. And so I get to say that.
Right, exactly. You have earned the right to say that.
I have.
Okay, so that happened to you almost 5 years ago. And so how have you, first off, every time I talk to you, see your posts, you are so positive. So I want to know, how do you stay so positive? And then also, what should we know? Because now, not all the time, but a lot of times you have to use a wheelchair, right? As well as your companion dog. So your life has totally changed now. I mean, from fully active, being able to do anything, and now you've had to do some restrictions. You've had to be more resilient. So a couple questions. Number one, how have you really stayed positive? And then also, what do we need to know about people when either we work with them, we live with them, we see them in our community? How can we be more compassionate and aware of people?
Well, first of all, I'm not positive all the time. My family would tell you that.
Outside you are, like when you're interacting, when you're in the business community, you are, like you put your face on and you are.
I try to be in my daily life. I just feel like I have to give that disclaimer or my family will watch this and, you know.
Right.
Well, in my company, and when I speak about resiliency, I talk about living 5 rules. In my company, we operated on a culture of living 5 rules, and rule number 1 is it's not about you. Which is, people have heard that all the time. It's not like I made that up, but the important part about that is it's not just the service aspect. Like, it's not about you. Get your ego out of the parking lot or leave it in the parking lot and, get it out of the way. It's also, it's not about you in that, don't take everything so personally. What other people are doing, they're not doing to you. You're not the center of the universe. And so, which, as a person who's been on stage since she was 4 years old, that's, I think, one of the reasons this lesson sticks with me is I have to repeat it over and over. When you're the one who's handed the microphone, it kind of is about you in that way. And sometimes people can develop giant egos. Often in organizations, the higher up people go in leadership, the more it becomes really, they become the center of the universe. And that actually decreases their personal resiliency as well as the resiliency in the team and the organization. And when you do that, you can't be positive. Because empathy and compassion, these qualities are just central to being a positive person, because otherwise you just get all sucked up in your own head. Woe is me. What a victim I am.
Good. So really focusing on other people more.
100%.
Yep. And then when you have, and so tell us now about kind of your physical capacity, what you're able to do, how much you have to use your chair, how your dog helps you, because your dog is so cute. So kind of tell us, what does life look like now? And then what have you learned? I mean, just even some of your bathroom posts that you've done, like when you've been in public, how people are so unaware of really making sure that they are ready for people of, all abilities.
Right. Absolutely. Well, because of my injuries, I can walk. I just don't walk very far. So I generally, unless I'm really hurting or injured, I will walk around my house. I have nerve damage all down my left leg. My left foot's asleep all the time. I end up with a lot of nerve pain there. And because I'm rebuilt like a Terminator with a ton of hardware, it hurts. So I use a wheelchair to go any kind of long distance. And I have a little 11-pound scruffy white service dog. Her whole job is sitting in my lap as essentially a furry hot water bottle, because she's 108 degrees all the time. And right. And so I hurt less. And I trained her. And because I didn't want to be one of those people who was faking a service dog, I then started studying the ADA, and then studied it a lot, and then became a certified ADA coordinator. So I do a lot of work in that space. And what you were talking about in bathrooms, it's a joke. I pretty much every time I travel in airports, I'm posting something about bathrooms, because for some reason airports are one of the most difficult places to go to the bathroom as a person with disabilities. And I think it's because you notice when you travel, people are so in their world. They are so very much, I'm in a hurry and I've got to get here and I've got to go there. And this is so frustrating. No focus on other people, really. And you can just slow down and be aware, look at your surroundings. If there's only the wheelchair stall available and you're in a line, then you can look. If there's somebody in a wheelchair behind you, then give it to them. If you don't see somebody in a wheelchair within a couple of people behind you, then that's fine. Go use the stall, but maybe don't get on Facebook then.
In and out, fast.
Right. Do your thing and go.
Right. Yes. And so that's definitely and I think that's everywhere. Like, people are so into their own world that they do not look. I mean, we see them run into things they aren't even looking at. Or when I'm on airplanes, people are struggling with luggage and no one is looking up at their phone. So I think everyone is so into their own world, they have to look up.
Right.
So what would you tell people, as far as like work environments, community, but like outside the bathroom, would you give the same advice? Just look up, how can we just be more thoughtful and considerate? Or is there anything like specific we should be aware of how to help people?
Super easy. You know that song, Stop, Look and Listen, Baby, Right. Okay. Right. You know that song.
Yes.
Okay. So it's simple. Stop, look, and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. In other words, just slow down. Stop the racing in your head. Stop the judging of other people. Just stop. Slow it down. Look, be really observant. Most people aren't paying any attention. And the problem with that is that means you're not getting enough data. Or just in general in your life, as opposed to being a compassionate person in general. The more you look and are aware, the more data and information you take in, the more you have to work with, and the more creative of a person you can be. So when you look and you really see people, then you can be more aware of their emotional state and more aware of their needs. And when you listen, oh my gosh, people so often just don't even hear what somebody's telling them, because somebody can say, yeah, I'm really tired today. And a person will just glaze on by that, as opposed to say, okay, what is there something you want to share? What's going on?
Yep.
It's so simple.
I'm also curious. So I went to college with a woman who taught me a very valuable lesson. She was born without her half of her right arm, and she had a prosthetic arm that she put on. And she would always get really annoyed when people would just stare at her arm and not ask her about it, And so I have always, like, if I am in a situation, I think it's appropriate, have conversations with people and just ask questions, because I think a lot of people look away or don't want to acknowledge. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have people ask you often, or like, how can we be more considerate? Like, what's the right thing to do as far as that?
Absolutely. So staring, not the right thing. Right. Asking questions, totally cool. Where people get this wrong is they ask questions that are more about their own kind of morbid curiosity. I have total strangers come up to me and go, so what happened to you? None of your business. Right. I don't know you. Right. I didn't give you permission to come into that space. That's not cool. So you don't go up and ask somebody, hey, what happened to you? Or what's that about? But asking, how does that make your life better? I would really like to know. Because all aids, for example, if somebody is using a wheelchair or a cane or a walker or a prosthetic, all of those things are not a bad thing. They're awesome. They make my life better.
Oh yes, for sure.
Everybody's life better.
Yep. So really twist it to the positive on how does that help? Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. One of my clients is Hanger Clinics, and they do a lot of prosthetic work, and their tagline is empowering human potential. Just the stories that I've seen with that, it's not focusing on what happened. It's how is your life better now that you have these tools. I love that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. See, and my wheelchair helps me be a badass.
Yeah. Yes. And your puppy keeps you warm.
Right. Exactly.
I love that. Good. So as far as in closing, the two things that all of us can do just to be more kind and compassionate, what would you tell all of us to do?
I would tell everybody to remember that no matter what you're doing, your job is not a task. Your job is a person.
Oh yeah. I just got chills. That was good. Yes. Yes. Like bring the human part back in, right?
Exactly. And if you can remember that very simple motto, my job is not a task. My job is a person. So no matter what you're doing, keep bringing it back to the personal connection.
Yes. I love it. Well, that is definitely the cowbell idea right there, because because we do truly have to go back to the human connection with people, be more kind and compassionate. So thank you so much. And if people are interested in your book, what's your book called?
The book is called Letters to My Daughter. The subtitle, which is really long, is How to Step Out of Other People's Boxes and Into Your Life as a Confident, Wholehearted, Badass Queen.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. And I'll put that link down below too, so people can check it out. But thank you so much for coming on. And you have made me think differently since I've met you about staying positive, but also just be more aware of my environment. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes. All right. Well, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Hey.